All right, this is session 22. It is October 21st of the BraveMaker Mastermind, our creative support group that meets every Monday. Hello to you all. We're a little small group today, so this is great. I know I can definitely do a lot of impressions. Olga is telling me in the chat, I have more than I need to be doing. I'm behind. I have been nursing this cold. It's so ridiculous. Anyway, we are going to launch into a film festival best practices and strategies discussion with our guest today. Before we do, just a reminder, we have our Halloween party on Sunday. Sorry, Saturday. Dashel is excited about the Halloween party. Remember, you get half off as members of BraveMaker, and all of the links for everything is at bravemaker.com/events. And we have a really awesome film that is coming up at CZI on November 4th. And that is going to be called No Right Way. It is with the filmmakers, which is a cool gift when they get to come and be with us in person. And Chelsea Bow and her husband Sean Drummond are the producers of this film right here, No Right Way. It is such a good film. Just be aware the screening does start at 5:30 because there's a heart out at 8 p.m. and we'll go out afterwards and hang with the filmmaking team over dinners and drinks and stuff like that. Again, you get half off of these events as BraveMaker Mastermind members. All this stuff is at bravemaker.com/events. This film is so good. And why it's important for you all to watch it is because they did it largely improv. And so, as we all are all indie filmmakers, we want you to be able to be inspired to go after these filmmaking goals and dreams. And this is a great way to learn. So that's Monday, November 4th. And the final thing I'll say is we are still going to Sundance. Hey, if you want to go to Sundance, there is bunk beds. There's one couch spot left, and there's also one private room left that can be split with two people. So if the Sundance route seems interesting to you, please check out the information. I will put that in the chat. And all right, welcome to everybody. Let me bring up our guest. We'll always start with a conversation and an interview for the first 20-ish minutes, and then we'll go into interaction. Of course, as always, please use the chat. I know we have no new members or guests today, so some of you might know each other, but you might not. Use the chat to put your full URL into the chat so we can be following each other and interacting and building relationships through social media. And then we will also encourage you to make questions or
Tony, you muted yourself.
Oop, thank you. I was going to say in the chat, you are welcome to put your impressions of our conversation and our questions, and impressions meaning not of celebrities, but just things that you're thinking, quotes, ideas, all that kind of stuff. All right, so let me bring in Crickett Rumley, who I got to meet in person just a couple weeks ago, which was great. And Crickett, you have I was noticing you're not just the director of film festivals at New York Film Academy, but you're the founder of this department. So I'm curious about like, did you actually started the whole department at New York Film Academy? So why don't you launch in with just your little backstory, who you are and how you got to be doing what you're doing?
I would love to. But first, I have a question for you, Tony. Uh, am I allowed to curse during
Yeah,
conversation?
curse as much as you want.
All right. I love you guys. This is great. Um, y'all, my name is Cricket Rumley. I'm a novelist and a screenwriter, and I know Stacy. Hi, Stacy. And I do run the department of the film festival department at the New York Film Academy. And the reason that I want to know if I can curse is because cursing is an important part of the origin story that I'm about to tell you, which is so I went to film school in the last millennium, literally,
Mhm.
and I was really fortunate to be able to work for the Telluride Film Festival. The chair of my film school department it was, and she's now retired, but she was the head moderator for Telluride, and that festival was as important to me as a human and as a filmmaker and novelist and screenwriter as anything I ever learned in film school. And so I worked for Telluride through the end of the 90s, and then just life took me in different directions. And I started working for the New York Film Academy and started their screenwriting department. So that was the first department that I founded and chaired and ran for a long time. And then I kind of grew away from screenwriting, which is still my first love, but I am now telling stories in a different way. I'm writing novels and very interested in owning my own IP, and just had took a different turn and just started putting out the word that I wanted to shift out of screenwriting if possible. And so in May 2017, one of my bosses came to me and said, "Hey, Cricket, would you help the students get their films into festivals?" And I was like, "I got this," because I worked for Telluride, I worked for Nantucket, I did all this stuff. Please know that I knew nothing in 2017, because everything that I knew was from the last millennium and the early aughts. And everything changed between, say, I would say more like 2003 to 2017. There were just sea changes in terms of, like, when I was in film school, y'all, we had to go and like write a letter and ask for an application form. That's how you started the process. There was no film freeway. You had to write a letter and put a stamp on it and send it to the film festival and ask for an application. And then you would handwrite every answer to every application and send it back with a VHS copy of your film. And the film trafficking issues were huge. It was just a really different scene. And so I feel like there was great benefit to me going into this process, Tony. I knew nothing. I got my ass handed to me for about 2 years straight, trying to figure out the landscape. And so any problem that any filmmaker has in the film festival world, I have had, and I have figured out a solution. And if I haven't had the problem, I know how to figure out the solution to it. So,
So you're going to
yes.
share with us all the answers then to film festival secrets. Perfect. Okay,
No,
good.
no, 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 no. I'm a Libra, Tony. Everything's complicated.
Well, if you have had a film festival experience, say something in the chat or give us a little hand emoji, because I'm imagining all of you have either been to one as a guest, or you've had a film be in one. And when I say film festival, that could be very loosely defined. There are things that are happening at libraries on the library projector. There are, community centers and school auditoriums that are putting up films on their screens and having discussions about it. I would say those are film festival type experiences, right? So
Mhm.
when you think about that, I'm curious, those of you who are on the chat, to think about the good, the bad, the ugly, as I ask Cricket about all of these things. So, obviously, Cricket, we do BraveMaker. We've been doing it we're going on our 7th year. So we had 4 in person, 2 online because
Yes.
of the pandemic. So I have my opinions and biases. And I started filmmaking before Film Freeway was a thing. There was something called Without a Box, which I'm
Yep.
sure you remember. Remember?
Yep.
I think Amazon bought it or owned it
They
at one
did.
point. Yeah. But it was a little difficult and clunky. And then even before that, it was like sending in a DVD to the places, like to get your film screened. It was a racket. So it's so much easier now in the submission, but it's still really difficult to get in. So, what are some of your high level ideas and thoughts when you're working with your filmmakers about what they need to be aware of? I saw you did a little reel recently about shorts, short
Yeah.
credits. I loved that. But what are the things that are coming to mind and that we should be aware of?
Well, I think that there are different stages of when someone becomes aware of what they need to know, right? And so if you haven't even made a film yet, or you're just thinking about it, my biggest piece of advice is to go to film festivals, because no film ever submitted to a film festival is seen in a vacuum. Like, film festival programmers are thinking about what's out there in the world. They're thinking about what their audience is like. And not every film festival audience is the same. It's I think that sometimes filmmakers think that if a film gets into one festival, it's going to be good enough to get into other festivals, or will be valued by that festival in the same way. And so I think it's really important to do some due diligence before you make a film, while you're in post production. Just get out there and see what is being programmed, and that's going to help a lot. The thing about Thank you for shouting out short credits for short films. Because one of the challenges that filmmakers face is that the short form in the US is not super common. You kind of have to seek it out. So we're inundated with watching TV shows. We're inundated with watching features, and so we're a lot of times we're looking to those for inspiration for opening and end credits. And so it doesn't work for short films. You have to kind of think like, oh, if my film is under 15 minutes or so, I need to keep it short. I need to keep my credits 30 to 45 seconds. There I am talking about that topic.
I'll say too, watching hundreds, if not now thousands of films over the past few years, I am a passionate believer that credits, not, this doesn't work for everybody, but this is mine. If you watch my work, credits are an extension of the story. That's what I believe.
Yes.
That's my
Yes.
opinion. So do them creatively. Use
Right.
them, put more to the story. Marvel obviously has owned the idea of the post credit scene, right? Well, Marvel doesn't
Mhm.
get to be the only. Wait, hold on a second. Marvel doesn't have to be the only people that get to do that, the only filmmakers, right? We can do that too. Or, the scenes, you've seen like blooper scenes in credits if you're doing a comedy, or maybe it's a drama and there's more like to the story with photos of the characters and where they are now or things like that. I think that's really engaging to me when I watch the films, because if it's just a bunch, especially like you're saying, if it's long scrolls of just names, like, I try to watch all those because I'm trying to see, do I know anybody in the credits,
Right. Right.
so, but yeah, short credits are important. Creative credits I think are important, and then just be aware of like the length of your film can make or break you getting into a film festival. Like I have a 19-minute short film right now that I'm not even going to submit to film festivals because I think it's just too long. I'm just going to put it on YouTube because I made it. I'm happy with it. But it's 19-minute shorts are really hard to get in a short program
So
anyway.
hard.
Yeah.
So
So the
hard.
5-minute ones and the 10-minute ones are under, man, they can have long lives, right? What are your thoughts about shorts and film festivals?
Well, I mostly work with short films, and because I'm working with students who are making their thesis projects, and it's a really interesting tension that exists. And again, I think that the tension starts with the fact that often our filmmakers are not really familiar with the short form. So they may be trying to take a feature idea and simplify it enough to get it into 20 or 25 minutes, and that doesn't work very well. So I've started telling my filmmakers that the best time to come see me is when they are really, really close to final cut, and they want a festival oriented opinion. So if I'm the first person that's going to watch the film that doesn't know anything about it, and y'all, I don't read titles, I don't read log lines, I just go straight into the movie. What is on screen? If it's not on screen, if I don't understand it, it's not there, right? And so I kind of keep a pure vision going into it. Um, but I will often ask my student filmmakers if they would consider cutting in certain places. I stop the film with the space bar the minute I get bored. And I'll tell them this is where I stopped. This is why I stopped. So what can we look at? Why am I bored right there? What's happening? And that is often hard for filmmakers to sit with if they've already done a ton of work on the film. I had a private client who came to me last year with a 7-minute film and said, "Why isn't this getting into festivals?" And I watched it and I said, "It's 2.5 minutes too long." And they were like, "But it's 7 minutes." And I'm like,
Right.
"But it's repetitive story beats. Would you consider recutting it?" And it's hard for people to hear that after they've been out submitting to festivals for a year. But
Wow.
I encounter a lot of these situations um, where if we just took a little more time to get the film to its best state, that it would have a more successful festival experience.
Well, that could be really discouraging when we hear that, especially those of us who have these long shorts, right? But a couple things
Yes.
come to mind. One, I think stepping back, and I think this is kind of what your job is as a consultant and coach and strategist, is to help filmmakers figure out where is the best place for their film to go.
Right,
Because not every film needs to go to a film fest. Number one, like
right.
you can make the film that you want, but just be aware if you make the film that you want, you don't edit, you don't trim, it's going to be, whatever long, it probably isn't going to have a long festival life. And that's okay if you get it. And you go, I'm going to make it, I'm going to show it to my friends, I'm going to put it up on YouTube, and I'll put, in small clips on my social media, whatever. That's totally fine. Okay. I think that's important for filmmakers to think about the end result. What do I want to do with this film? Right. The second thing is, I think there's another encouragement that as I listen to you, I think as filmmakers, we probably are a little too precious around the short filmmaking process, where we think we have to do some elite 10-15 minute,
Right.
art piece, when really, like, you can tell a really cool, great story in 3 to 5 minutes and shoot it out in one day and have something that really looks great, that has some legs in the film festival, right? That's
Yeah.
what I hear you saying too. So maybe we should be changing our strategy a little bit. If film festivals are our goal, well, make something super short, tight, cool, and unique that could, get the attention of a programmer in 3 to 5 minutes.
I think that's really valuable, and I'm going to add to that I I work with private clients that I work with. Sometimes they are making a film for the first time. Like maybe they've been a DP, maybe they've been. I've worked with a number of actors who are transitioning into filmmaking, and so they have a long history working in film. Yet this is the first short that they're making, and it may I feel like making a short film, if you think about it too long, making film in general, it's insane, y'all. Like, how many different art forms are you working with? Writing, performance, cinematography, production design, art, architecture, interior design, like costume design. We're working with so many different types of artistry. And I think that everyone should give them grace that it may take a while to figure out how to manage all of those different things at once, those different aspects. And if you're, to your point, Tony, if you're making shorter films, then there's a lot less pressure to get everything right. You can give yourself smaller assignments. Like, I'm really going to focus on working with actors this time in this 3 to 5 minute short, or this is the short where I'm really going to go deep on cinematography or production design, set up a world. And and I'm always really interested in how we learn film, to make film as an educator, and how we can make it an enjoyable learning process, as opposed to I'm making a 25-minute short film and it's my first one, and
Yeah, the learn by doing, right? Especially if you have not made one short film, maybe it's better to start with a short. And that's what a lot of film school does, right? They have the
Absolutely.
students do non-dialogue shorts, do a 3 minute thing, then you add dialogue. So I think that's wise. I like, and I'm always for the learning by doing. Okay, so
Me
let's open
too.
it. Let's open it up. You had a slide to show. Do you want to show your slide? Or is that for later?
Sure.
Okay. And then we'll open it
Um,
up for some questions and stuff, y'all.
yeah. So one of the things that I do both with my student filmmakers and private clients is I help them figure out their goals in a film festival run, and I also help them figure out which types of festivals we want the film to submit to, and because obviously we can't determine which festivals the film will get into, but we can certainly be super smart about oh, sorry. I don't know what's happening here, y'all. I have so many things open. Here we go. Uh
Typical creative.
seriously, I really need another computer. So we can't control in any way which festivals a film will get into, but we can certainly be smart about where we're submitting the film. And so I wanted to present this slide just to show you what the tiers of festivals are. So we've got at the top tier one, the most val most I'm just was about to say the word valuable, but I'm not always convinced they are.
Yeah, yeah.
But the most prestigious festivals in the world, the Sundance, Cannes, Berlin, Tribeca, Toronto. And then tier two, those are the awards qualifying festivals. So think about any festival that is Oscar qualifying or BAFTA qualifying or Goya, if you're dealing with a Spanish festival, Canadian Screen. These are the festivals that have a stamp of approval on them that are feeding the awards mechanisms of these higher organizations. So there are over 150 Oscar qualifying short film festivals, I believe, at this time. And then tier three are more regional festivals. And I run panels for Tallgrass. So I'm leaving on
Hmm.
Wednesday for 6 days at the Tallgrass Film Festival in Wichita, Kansas, which is a renowned indie film festival, definitely a regional festival. And then we have the specialized festivals, which are really specific niche festivals. I have a filmmaker. Oh, actually, one of your filmmakers, Jennifer Marie, Tony.
Mm-hmm,
She was
mm-hmm.
just at the March on Washington Film Festival with the Ally.
Oh,
And so
cool.
that's all about politics and social issues in film. But she was also at BraveMaker with that film.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And female forward festivals, LGBTQ, Asian American, Latinx, etc. So the specialized festivals, I always want to say, they are placed at the bottom of the pyramid, but in my heart, they are not at the bottom of the pyramid at all. Um, and so the conventional wisdom that a lot of new filmmakers come to me with is that you want to start at the top and submit only to the top film festivals in the world, and then see how you do there, and then let the film trickle down. And I have found that that is an incredibly problematic strategy. Although I'm going to tell you, everyone's going to tell you this, y'all. I am the underdog. Remember this. I am the underdog. I am the little devil saying, don't believe that. Um, but this I haven't found works very well because of these statistics. So if you're a new and emerging filmmaker, if you're a young filmmaker, if you're really sort of new to the game, and that could mean this is like your second or third or fourth short that you're taking out to festivals, this is what you're up against. This is a reality. Sundance 2024 had, this is short film submissions, 12,098 submissions for 53 selections. Tribeca, I was sitting with one of their lead short programmers, and she was showing me what they had going. And it was about 8,000 between Film Freeway and submissions on their shorts portal. And then they only program 60 to 70 films. And then Can, and this is the court metrage, this is the actual short section, not short film corner. But they had over 4,000 submissions for 11 selections. So if you're going for these tier one festivals, you're in exceedingly high competition. And one of the things that I think is really critical to know too is that a lot of times the niche and regional festivals that will discover a new work, that will discover a new artist, uh, have programmers who work for other festivals, and they might be start pushing the work up, right? So this trickle down effect, I don't see working for new and emerging filmmakers. More what I see is that a new and emerging filmmaker gets into regional and specialized festivals, and then a programmer from, let's say, Seattle LGBTQIF Festival promotes the film to Vancouver, which I believe is Canadian qualifying. Or my filmmakers that I got into Sundance 2 years ago fought me every single inch of the way, but they got discovered at a documentary film festival in Germany by a Sundance programmer.
Oh, wow.
So that's how they ended up in Sundance. So I just wanted to show this to know, so that we're all on the same page with this doesn't work so
That's
well
right.
because of this. So consider this.
Okay,
All
well,
right.
we're gonna open it up for questions, but let me make a comment on that. I think that could be so discouraging too. You're like 12,000 submissions to Sundance for 53 spots.
Yeah.
That those odds are 1% or less, right? And
Less.
and we put so much effort and hope and expectation into that stuff as filmmakers. I'm going to Sundance. I've been going for 13 years. I love it. It's like Mecca, but I also recognize that those odds don't mean that I'm not a great filmmaker. It just means that it's not for me in my trajectory. That's not going to be how my films are going to be seen. And when I get the rejection, I can go, but where is it going to be seen? What is the audience that I'm building? I go to Sundance with a totally different goal to make relationships that are going to be not just about me getting into Sundance, but about me with
Right.
the legacy that I hope to build in this industry so that 5, 10 years from now, I'm working because of those relationships that I've made in the circuit by just being an attendee of all that kind of thing. So I really appreciate you pointing out kind of like inverting that triangle a little bit and going really finding the niche festivals, finding, BraveMaker is a niche festival because we're about brave storytelling and we really care about the people and the
Right.
makers. We're a 4-day festival. We only program 90-ish films, blah blah blah. That
Mhm.
is a great insight for filmmakers to do your research. Look around Film Freeway, get a spreadsheet. We just had Chelsea Bow from No Right Way, the film, who's coming with us in November, and we were talking about having a spreadsheet that you collect over the years and just make notes about what film festivals work,
Yes.
what films have you seen that have been great fits that maybe 5 years from now you keep in mind, because you shouldn't be submitting to every single film festival because it's pricey too, you know so yeah, so
So
many
many
things.
so many things, and I want to speak to something that you just said about, like, I I was just at a festival that had two very high level people do master classes. I'm not going to tell you which festival, because I didn't love it. And I both of the people that spoke had no interest in getting in dialogue with the filmmakers. They're just way too up there. Like
Mm,
what I see, at, because I've spent so much time both at Telluride and at Tallgrass, what I see a lot is that the niche festivals where the programmers and the directors are bringing in people who are making films that fit their niche, a lot of times those folks are much more interested in engaging in dialogue and building relationships with new and emerging filmmakers. And so those people are like a few steps above where you are, as opposed to like Steven
Yes.
Spielberg, right?
Right, 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 right.
Right. And so I think that that's part of the equation for me too, is like you want to be building the relationships that are going to sustain your building a career. And that may not be the person who's like super high above you. It may be the person two or three levels or like on the in the same playing field that you are at this moment. And there's tremendous value to that.
Olga, let's bring Olga, one of our 2024 filmmakers with her short film Effervescence, also on our team. But you're doing the film festival circuit. What's your question, Olga?
Yes. Hello, everyone. Hi, Crickett. So good to see you.
Hi,
So
Olga.
good to talk to everyone. And this is the best team to ask these questions because I would love multiple perspectives and multiple opinions on that, especially as the background of festival as Crickett you have. My question is about another short I'm doing. It's in post-production, and it's a film about losing a loved one. It's about a woman who's processing these feelings of grief and sadness and loss, and she's basically just reciting a poem. It's not a traditional script. It's a long 2,000 word poem with her going through all the places they've been together and visiting those moments and even seeing flashbacks and really having moments of sadness. But it's not a dark, depressive movie. It's more about her eventually coming to a sense of peace and comfort and just accepting the truth and moving on and finding closure. The film ends with her being more comfortable and just being able to let go no matter what happens. And my question is, even though this film is somber, it has all this emotional kind of ebbs and flows, the music will match that tone. It's very gothic kind of chamber music of, some medieval church. But because you've been talking about creative closing credits, and I was thinking to do something unusual of having sort of a side panel with some of the BTS and some of the lighter moments during production, not as a comedy or blooper or anything, but just to show that, life has two sides. It's not always dark. It's not always sad. There's, in any situation, there's kind of a better version of it or a different version of it. And say something like no actors were harmed during filming the short. This male actor who is supposed to be dead, he's actually not dead. And just have those moments presented. So this is, portrayal of experience, but it's not exactly what happened. What are your thoughts on that? Would that be not something that is a good condition for the film given its nature, or was it something acceptable that actually makes it more interesting and
How long do you think the film will be, Olga?
about 12 minutes?
About 12 minutes.
Mhm.
And first of all, I just want to say I love it when people are bringing in different forms of art into our art form. So I think the poem sounds really lovely, and I think that grief is such a universal topic
Mhm.
um, that I can totally see it resonating. What what I think, and I don't know, Tony, you might have a different perspective, but I, when a festival, when programmers are choosing a film, they know that they have blocks of a certain amount of time.
Mhm.
And so that real estate, if they have 90 minutes for program and then say 15, 20 minutes for a Q&A afterwards,
Mhm.
they're going to be looking at how many things can we get into that 90 minutes. This is why you don't see so many long short films, because they're trying to generally program as much as they can. And one of the things that I think is critical is to consider your opening moments and images, because as a filmmaker in a short block, you have to get people to forget what they just saw,
Mhm. Mhm.
right? You have to set up a new world. So if somebody just had a science fiction film right before yours that is also about grief, and then you're bringing them into the world of your film. So those opening minutes are really important. And then the final moments and the final image, that's where your theme reside. That's where you have your maximum impact on the audience. And I would be very concerned, and not having seen anything, but I would be really concerned that additional BTS might fight with
Mhm.
the experience of the film itself. It might undermine the experience of the film. That
Yeah.
would be my main concern.
Mhm.
So I would say try it and see if it works. And maybe also think for yourself, like, okay, how do I want the audience to feel at the end? Where am I going to have the biggest impact? In what way am I going to have the biggest impact?
Right. That's a really good advice. It's definitely something to sit with last theme and last closing image. Maybe instead of BTS, it could be just like her finding a peace, looking up at the sky and just having more kind of comfortable moments so that it's still in the genre. It doesn't take them out of it. It doesn't show like behind the scenes, but
Yeah.
just something that is not text on a on a slide. That I'll try that.
Yeah, try it. I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah,
Thank
I would add to getting some test audience, Hollywood does it all the time. They have
Hmm.
an audience watch it and say, "What do you think?" And as
you.
I was listening to you, I think the tone of the film, might be a little jolted if it did change so abruptly and we were taken out because maybe you just want to like play that song
Mhm.
alongside the credits and continue some sort of B-roll that really helps people take a breath, like
Mhm, mhm.
gotta process that, and then you end with a quote or something significant.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I also
Love
want
this
to,
kind of stuff.
I know. And I also want to add that I see a lot of filmmakers who are trying or creating a fiction story that is about a topic that they also want to direct their audience to an organization like
Mm.
a suicide
Hmm.
hotline or for more information on this issue. And whenever I see that statement right after the last image of the film, I'm like, what? I was in the story. I was in the story. Don't make me think about reality. That kind of thing is important, but I think that belongs at the very, very end of the credits so
That's
that
great.
your audience can process the film.
The Penguin show on HBO, thanks Olga, just did that very same thing with because they had an episode that featured Alzheimer's and the very like long credits, cool music,
Yeah.
very last thing, boop, then fade up. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. All right, Dashel, what's your question? Good morning.
Hello.
Hi, I'm Dasha, and I have made a couple of short films before myself. Most of them were like Lego stop motion, and
Cool.
yeah, but I'm now also getting into live action filmmaking as well. I'm taking a class in that actually, and so since I know that my films can and not be as great as I hope they'll be, e- since I have Down syndrome. And so I'm wondering, are there film festivals that are willing to include my films? Or should I look at festivals that are more centered around disability and Down syndrome?
Good question,
That's
Dashel.
a great question. That's a
Mhm.
great question. Dashel, can I ask how old are you?
I'm 20.
You're 20? Okay. So whenever I work with a filmmaker, I send them a questionnaire and I ask them to answer a bunch of questions about the film and about themselves. And because my goal is to figure out who your natural audience is, right? Like, let's go find who wants to watch this film. And what I generally find, Dashel, is that it's different for every film and every filmmaker, and that every filmmaker, we're going to find several natural audiences. So I would watch the film and see what is the film about. And then I would think, okay, is it a horror film? Let's look for horror festivals. Is it a comedy? Let's look for comedy festivals, but also comedy sections in bigger festivals. And yes, I would look for films that focus on disability, but also youth film festivals. So, like, there's the National Film Festival for Talented Youth in Seattle. That's a really cool festival. There are some really cool ones in Europe. Um, there's one in Austria. Like, you could go around the world, Dashel, with this film as a filmmaker, generally under the age of 25. And one of my favorite ones to talk about, just because I love London, I'm going to put it in the chat. Um, it's the British Film Institute's Future Film Festival. And it's in London at the British Film Institute for filmmakers between the ages of 16 and 25, films under 10 minutes. Can you do that? Can you make a film under 10 minutes?
Yeah, definitely. No, that won't be a problem.
That won't be a problem. And you know what the additional really, really cool thing about this festival is, Dashel?
But
It is programmed by people who are ages 16 to 25.
cool.
Right? Yeah.
It also is a great reminder to think about who you want to watch your film. What is the audience,
Yeah.
that you want people that and building that now, Dashley, I know you're on social media, which is great. So we talk about this a lot on MasterMind, is the people that you're interacting with on Instagram and TikTok. Those are the people that are going to watch your movie. So remember
Absolutely.
to be letting them know, hey, I'm working on a film. I'm in pre-production. Or guess what? We're, 2 months away from filming, or I just did my first documentary interview. If they're watching the process, that's going to make them all the much more engaged in wanting to watch the film when it's done. And that
Yeah.
also goes to say, if you're all watching this on the replay, that the building of relationships, and Cricket, I want to hear your input on this. Thank you, Dasha, by the way. I want to hear your input about like connecting with film festivals and programmers and building those relationships, because that's one thing that I've seen some great things happen and some not so great things happen. The do's and don'ts of filmmakers reaching out to film festival programmers, the the thirsty nature of trying to, like you said, get to that top tier person with no established relationship whatsoever, just saying, hey, watch my film. Hey, I'll share this and then I'll toss it over to you. I have been working with a person in Sundance for this will be going on my third year now, of just met them. I actually had a breakfast with them at one point. We have maybe exchanged a few Instagrams over the years. Last year, I saw them in the streets and they said, hey, I'm going to be going to Java Cow, which is on Main Street. Let me know if you want to come and grab a quick coffee. I was like, let me cancel my plans. I'm going to go meet you. It was
100%.
right.
Yes.
It was a 10-minute little thing. That was in January of 2024. We've exchanged 2 Instagrams from January till now, and I'm trying to get an in-person. It's been so much work and waiting and patience, but that's the kind of stuff that it takes, I think, right? As opposed to sometimes I'll get people in my DMs, and again, I'm a regional niche festival who I don't know from anywhere, who are asking for waivers, and I'm like, it's a weird space. Any questions or any thoughts that you have around building those relationships with film programmers and film fests?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up, Tony, because it's something that I think about a lot, and I I think that building relationships is best if they're organic and that they come out of an organic situation rather than a transactional thing. We were talking about this on the panel that I moderated that included Sundance head of their feature program, feature lab. And so we had this conversation about like networking. It can feel really transactional, and
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't make anyone feel good. It
Mm-hmm.
makes the programmers feel like they're only valuable for this one thing. And I think it makes filmmakers feel like they have to pursue um, relationships in ways that might not feel organic to them, that feel awkward. And I realize as I'm saying this that I feel awkward talking about this. I'm just going to call that out. Um, and I have good news for you. I have good news. So when I started this job in 2017, I was basically handed a slate of 300 films and filmmakers, and I knew nothing, y'all. Remember how I got my ass handed to me? And I was really worried about I don't have relationships with current programmers. How's this going to work? I was thinking something that a lot of people think and share, that you have to know someone in order to get into a festival. You have to know someone in order to get into a big festival. Let me tell you, I have never once picked up a phone to call anyone to promote a film, and I have had films everywhere now, 7 years later. So I call this my laboratory, and my evidence shows that you don't need to know someone to get into a festival. You don't need to expend your energy that way. As you started out this whole thing, Tony, you were talking about like people are going into your DMs asking for waivers, and that's uncomfortable. That's not cool. I tell my students don't ask for waivers, but I am fighting every day with our faculty who often, like, I think 20 years ago you could get away with this. Now there are too many films, and there are too many easy ways for people to communicate you. And so what I hear a lot is that festivals don't want to be reached out to. They don't want that at the beginning. So I don't think that's critical, but what I do think is critical is that when your film gets into a festival, you make a big effort to talk to the programmers because they're your fans. They liked your film enough to put it into their festival. So talk to them, ask them for, like, why did you program my film? They're your audience. Get that information. Send them a thank you note. Give them a little piece of merch. If you're doing merch, which you don't have to, but like, here's a sticker. This is from Tallgrass. Can you see it? Like, get some stickers made, hand them out, like goodwill. And then ask them if they have other festivals that they would recommend that your film might be a good fit for. That to me is like the biggest key, because so many festival programmers work for other festivals, and they, like, I have literally had a programmer walk a film that didn't get into their festival over to another festival because they love the film so much. So I think that once you have relationships with people, it's really good to keep in touch with them. Stacy is saying, I've randomly met programmers by just talking to people at festivals. That's right. That's right. That's organic, right? It's not this like transactional, what can you do for me? It's like, hey, we're both at the same place and we're having a conversation.
Yeah, make those friendships along the way. Don't be thirsty and weird. And is there something we could be mutually beneficial to one another on? Right. I think it's like years ago, this was the thing, because I remember listening to podcasts. There was like podcast secrets of film festival podcasts I listened to, and they were saying like nobody knows that you can ask for waivers and free things. And then if you have a thousand people in your DMs doing that, that could be so overwhelming. And then for a small film festival like us, like we're just trying to keep afloat, and those submission fees help us to rent the venues. It feels a little bit like, well, the people want
Yeah.
us to put their films on screens, but we're not going to have a screen if we are giving it away for free. So it's a really challenging dynamic, building those relationships authentically, and just even like in social media, right? I see the filmmakers from our past who are engaging in our comments. I watch the filmmakers who
Right.
are reposting our stuff, and the
Yep.
ones who have given us reviews on Film Freeway. All that stuff really does
Yep.
go a long way for us wanting to support you and reach out. Because not that it has to be transactional, but it does feel like in a relationship, you know when it feels one-sided in a friendship and you feel like
Yep.
you're the one always reaching out. Well, the same thing can feel like that in the film festival space. If the filmmakers aren't doing their work to promote their film to help sell tickets, we see that and we're like, well, okay, you just want to show up and expect a full theater, but you're not willing to do the work, so that's a big thing. Well, we got about 7 minutes left, Cricket. What other things come to mind or questions? Y'all bring them out.
I wanted to say really quickly that filmmakers are going to be better served over time if they actually fundraise for and
Mm,
budget for marketing and distribution.
good
If they
point.
budget from the very beginning and don't leave that. And remember that in the studio system, marketing and distribution is often double the cost of production. I'm not saying that's what you need,
Yeah.
but just to like at least a third of your production, if not more. Um, and also, I saw a question someone asked about premiere status.
Mm.
Gwen wrote, people think they have to submit to prestige festivals because they require premieres. Is that not true? That is not true, Gwen, my friend. It's complicated. Remember, I'm a Libra. And so what you need to do is research each festival's premiere status requirements for short films.
Because they're all
And
different.
they're all different. And like Tribeca, for example, has a very, very hardcore New York regional premiere status requirement, but they have programmed films that were at Sundance. And my friend Derek Horn told me this amazing story. I'll try to remember the name of the film, but it ultimately got nominated for an Oscar, but it wasn't getting into anything at first. And Derek saw it at a festival, I think an LGBTQ festival in Tampa, Florida, and then programmed it at Annapolis and Santa Fe. And at Annapolis, someone from Tribeca saw it, and they were like, "We want this film." And I believe it was at Tribeca they won the Oscar qualifying award, best short, and that's what took it to the Oscars. So I love these stories. I treasure these stories where someone starts small and goes upwards. Um, I think the only festival in the world that's pretty serious about a world premiere is Venice. But I think everybody else, there's a lot of layers and variability.
And for shorts, it's a different story than features, but you could also, have your feature or have your short on YouTube and still be selected for a film festival. So yeah, look at all those things. You don't have to be discredited even if your film is already on YouTube, which I always kind of find a little weird sometimes.
I think that's a hard one though. That's
Yeah.
I would not give that piece of advice.
But there are film festivals that
But it
do
does
that.
happen.
I'm just saying it's weird. I don't like it,
Yeah.
but I think, but this is what the one thing I wanted to say in our remaining minutes is the film festival schedule. Like when you look at your year, it
Mhm.
can really throw a loop for
Yeah.
your timing. And I am gonna say this, I don't know, I feel like kind of strongly. If you're going to hold out for a film festival for a premiere at the big one, it could really it's a gamble. It's like playing the lottery. It really is, because you just saw the odds that Cricket shared earlier. Case in
Yeah.
point, there was a filmmaker who had a great film submitted to our film festival in July. I know they finished it around February or March because that's when we got it in our portal. And I was like,
Uh-huh.
this is great. I want to have you February or March of 2024. We selected them in June. They said they were going to pull it because they were waiting for a bigger festival. Okay.
Not cool.
Not cool. But
Not cool.
okay, sure. It's now October. I reached out to the filmmaker a few weeks ago and I just said, hey, how are things going? Well, we didn't get into that film festival. We're still waiting, hoping for something in 2025. I'm like, that film has been done since February or March, and it's sitting in Film Freeway, hoping for a film festival. That's where I go. You really got to count the cost on these film festival
Yeah.
premieres and look at if your production, like I know Gwen, you're in a production in November. Realistically, when is that film going to be finished? Realistically, from the finishing point, when can you start submitting to the film festivals that you want? You might not see that film on a screen for a year and a half. Is that worth it? You got to really count those costs and go, what's the best end place for my film? It could be YouTube, it could be a personal friends and family, rent a theater, whatever. But holding out for certain film festivals might mean you wait a year and a half and it just ends up on YouTube anyway. That's a big thing.
There are some folks that were in your festival 2 years ago who made a wonderful film. I love that film. They came to me about a year after they had started submitting, and the person who they had consulted with had had a tier one, tier two only strategy. That's all he submitted the film to. And they got into one festival out of 40 they submitted to. And they came to me, and I looked at the list, and Tony, I was horrified. There were no niche festivals. There was no thought beyond tier one, tier two. And the film was amazing. And unfortunately, they had really spent their budget for submissions. And so they weren't able to push it as far as it could have gone. And so that's why I feel like if you definitely should submit to the Sundances and the Tribecas of the world. But if you have a solid, if you're on that whole pyramid, if you're working the whole pyramid, you're going to get into festivals faster and have a better experience over time. But if you're just holding on for tier one and tier two,
Be a long wait. Well, Cricket, I know we're at our time, but tell people where they can find you. And then I know you also offer personal consulting services for filmmakers who want to work with you, right?
I do. I do. I just put my Instagram and handle, and I have a little form if you want to get on my occasional newsletter. I will happily send you that and send you information about my rates and services. But yeah, Tony, I'm like the DIY indie filmmakers festival
Love it.
strategist
Love it.
that like I think filmmakers are so good at DIY that if you're willing to put in the research, I can do a strategy for you and meet with you a couple of times for $500, and I swear that will save you 1,500 to 2,000.
All right. DIY, save the money. I love it. Cricket, thank you so much. This has been so valuable. I'm going to definitely share this with other
That's
filmmakers,
me.
and all of our selected filmmakers are going to get this too for 2025 to watch. But let's take a photo, everybody. Look into the camera with your biggest smile or whatever you want to do. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Thank you so much, Cricket. You're awesome. Good work. And we
Thank
hope to see you in the
you.
future. Send us some great filmmakers to BraveMaker, okay?
All right. Yes, absolutely. I would love that. Bye, everybody. So
See
nice to
you.
meet you.
Oh, next week, by the way, Brett Takashita from Tubi Originals. So he is going to be talking about how you can work with Tubi and get a funded film from Tubi Originals. Okay, cool. Bye, everybody.
Amazing. Bye.